Lots of interviews.
Sayinghello.com.
Oh, cool.
It's a website, and we have million of users. They are filmmakers,
Oh,
not
great.
movie fans. So after this interview, I will write an article about this and promote this movie.
Oh, great.
Okay.
So I can say really long answers now.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, I was curious after the trailers. Fans say this is just like a sequel of Avengers Endgame. It's not like a sequel of Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah.
So, are you agree?
Well, it's funny because it has to sort of be both. The movie picks up right after Endgame leaves off, and there's a lot of unanswered questions in Endgame. I mean, the world is a completely different place after everything that happened. You know, the Avengers are gone, half the world disappeared, was gone for 5 years, and then came back. And Peter Parker doesn't have his mentor anymore. So that being said, we have to deal with all of the fallout of Endgame, but also be the sequel to Homecoming as well. So for me, the challenge was balancing those two things, you know, maintaining the sort of tone and the spirit of Homecoming while also dealing with a story on a much bigger scale.
Yeah, okay. Are there any challenges in this time when you're filming this movie?
Well, we made a big decision for this movie because we wanted it to feel like a real on-location road trip movie. So we decided that we were just going to actually go to all of these countries and really shoot in all of these places. So that is immediately a lot more difficult as just a purely technical and logistical challenge to go to Prague and to shoot on the Charles Bridge at night, or to go to London and shoot at the Tower Bridge, and go to Venice, you know, where everything arrives on boats. You know, that's a lot more work than just going to a stage every day.
Okay. The next question is, Iron Man is just like a mentor in the previously Spider-Man movie, but at this time he died. So
Yeah.
how do you deal the relation between Peter Parker and Tony Stark in this movie?
Well, it's a big issue for Peter. I mean, it's one thing for him to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man when he knows that there's an Iron Man there sort of watching over him. But now with Iron Man gone, he's all alone. And he has to find his place in the world, you know. And on top of that, he's dealing with, you know, losing this person that cared about him and he cares about. So a lot of it is, you know, Peter growing up and dealing with that. And, you know, it's a really sweet, meaningful, moving story, you know, that we're trying to tell here.
Okay. You know, the Mysterio is just come from the multiverse.
Yeah.
Yeah. How could you introduce more about the multiverse concept? Because it's so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And like I was saying, you know, so many things happened in Endgame that we have to deal with. I mean, also time travel is possible. The idea of multiple realities in a multiverse, you know, that was all introduced in Endgame. And now, as a result of that, you know, here we have Mysterio arriving from a different version of our Earth to our Earth. Yeah, it's a really cool concept. And it's something that's been in the comics for so long, and was something that we were able to take advantage of and start to tell those stories in our film.
Okay, so I was curious, the look and the suit of Mysterio is so close to the original comics. It looks very cartoon. So why you have this design? Because I remember the Vulture is so different.
Yeah. You know, it was funny. We started with the design that's really true to what it looks like in the comics, and then we tried different versions that were following more of the path of the Vulture, or you know, we're telling the story of this sort of soldier from another dimension that's arriving on our Earth. So we tried other interpretations of the suit, more realistic versions, more military versions, and in the end, it turns out the best design was the classic design. In the end, that was just the coolest one, and so we had to go with that.
Yeah.
Fishbowl and all.
Yeah, it's really a fishbowl in the jacket hat.
Yeah.
Wow.
No. We couldn't actually. You know, if you put a real fishbowl on someone, it would just fog up, and we'd never see him. So we had to do. Most fishbowl was done later.
Okay. I was curious. There's so many villains in previous Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
They are human beings, but this time it's sort of elements.
Yeah.
So how is there any difficulty to bring this creature on big screen?
Well, Spider-Man has the greatest rogues gallery of any superhero. There's so many different kinds of villains that Spider-Man has fought over the years, and they really fall into two kinds of categories. There's the characters that have a personal relationship with Peter, and then there's the villains that really challenge Peter in a way that he hasn't been challenged before. Characters that are difficult for him to fight, that really have to force him to step up in a way that he's never had to fight before. And I wanted to pick villains that could challenge Spider-Man in a way that someone like the Vulture couldn't. So that's why we went with these characters who are inspired by like Hydro Man and Molten Man and Cyclone and Sandman. We turn them into this idea of the elementals, who are more than just Liz's dad from the last movie. These are existential forces of nature that it's going to be tough for him to fight just shooting webs, and sticking to things. It's going to be a challenge that is bigger than anything he's ever faced before.
Yeah, I can't wait to see this movie.
Yeah.
And I want to know, how do you deal with the relation between MJ and Peter Parker? Because in previous Spider-Man movie, there's so many romantic scenes, just like kisses and dating.
Yeah.
How do you deal in this version?
Well, we finally got to make it a bigger part of the movie. The last one, it was a much smaller part that then had big consequences. This time, Peter and MJ's relationship is one of the main driving forces of the film. One of the big reasons why Peter wants to sort of run away from the responsibility that he's facing is because he has a crush on this girl, MJ, and he thinks she likes him, and he really likes her, and this trip is going to be his chance to tell her how he feels. So we finally got to get a little bit deeper into the Peter MJ story and make it, a romance on top of all the fun and the action as well.
Okay, I was curious. Did you cut any scenes that you are favorite in this movie?
No, there are one or two scenes that didn't make it into the movie, but nothing that was my favorite. All the best stuff is what you're going to see on screen.
Okay, now let's talk about the action scenes, because it's so cool. so how do you make the design the action scenes in this time?
Well, what was great when you're dealing with not only the elementals, which are these like terrifying forces of nature, but we also get a team up between Mysterio and Spider-Man. So now, it's the moment that we never really got to see in the other movies of Iron Man and Spider-Man fighting together. Now we get to see Mysterio, who can fly and shoot lasers out of his hands, and you have Spider-Man, who can stick to things and shoot webs. The two of them taking on these giant elemental creatures really just opens up the scope and lets us do really big stuff that we couldn't do before.
Okay, and how did you work with the DP,
Matt Lloyd?
Matt Lloyd, yeah. How do you work together?
Well, what's great is that Matt Lloyd and I have known each other for a really long time. He shot my other movie, Cop Car.
Yeah. Cop Car, yeah.
He shot
movie, yeah.
Yeah, he shot Cop Car, which was so small, but we've known each other for such a long time that we have sort of a shorthand so that we can work together really smoothly.
Okay. I saw there's several screenwriters in this movie. So how do you manage your work with a screenwriter?
There's only two on this movie, yeah. This time, the last movie, there were a lot more names credited, but this time it's just Chris and Eric credited. And what we did is it was just the three of us in a room for months, just figuring out the story and all the detail. And then they went off to write the pages while I went off to go prep. So just in terms of time, it made a lot more sense for it to just be the two of them as the sole writers, as we all worked out the story together.
Okay. Did you use some very expensive equipment in this movie?
Yeah, we did. We got to use some really, really cool stuff. There's so much you can do now. And what's great about doing a really big movie like this is I can use all the cool equipment that I could never afford before. That I always geeked out over. So we got to we got to use everything. It's great, shooting with motion control rigs and just all kinds of crazy camera equipment and a camera boat. I've never done that before, in Venice.
Yeah, there's some new tech.
Yeah, lots of new tech.
Okay. How do you work with Tom Holland this time? Because it's the second time you work together.
It's great. Again, it's like talking about working with Matt Lloyd. Once you've been through this process with someone before, you understand each other, and you don't have to work as hard in a way because you have a shorthand that develops between you. So I think Tom and I, get along in a way that really helps where we sort of know what each other is thinking now.
Okay, that's my question.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
Thank
yeah,
you.
it was great. Yeah.
I love the car.
Oh,
really
thank you.